Hey everybody, just wanted to share a couple of quick updates and then do a short teaching segment here in the group. Once again, thank all of you for being part of this, whether you've participated in a seminar or, whether we go back as old friends or we've connected in the last year or so through coaching. Just thank you for being part of the group, and look forward to serving you through the little mini lesson today. But I did just want to share a brief word of update. Some of you may have seen this through some other channels, some other social media and that type of thing, and writing that I do. But many of you know that the financial coaching group that we see right here, the Ryan Marks Coaching, has extended beyond the financial coaching, which is still a passion and I'm thankful to do. Many of you know, though, it's extended into coaching pastors, to training them, to developing resources to equip everyday believers in engaging in studying the Bible better, so that we can interpret the Lord's Word and apply it faithfully. And then many of you also may have seen some of the updates that I've been doing some writing and stuff, but those feed into those other tiers of helping equip pastors and helping equip everyday believers in Bible study. And then also my past experience as a church consultant and as a revitalization consultant for 5 years in the past is also taking all of those lessons and working now on developing books, courses, and of course there's still the one-to-one coaching. And there's been a lot of opportunities to be sharing those principles and doing those trainings in the majority world. So, I'm going to kind of talk for just a moment what that means, kind of some pivots I'm thinking through at the moment, and what that means for, how this affects finance. And that's how I'm going to kind of move into our lesson today. So when your platform or your service expands, let's talk about this. Put a running a business hat on for a moment, or think about your own home. Think about if what your household does. Let's say you have a certain number of friends that you connect with, or you entertain, or you're in a relationship with. Imagine that expands. Like your kids make friends, and there's a lot more people in the mix all of a sudden. Let's take the same principle of faithfulness that we apply to finances, and let's start thinking how that impacts some other areas. So the way I've talked about it in workshops, so some of you might be familiar with this language, is that the whole point of the financial coaching I do is faithfulness in finances. And I'm thinking about maybe kind of changing that word slightly to faithful in money. I think that might kind of get the point across a little simpler, and if you will, a little less Christianese. Because not that I am no way am minimizing the biblical element of stewardship and component of my coaching and teaching, but I do recognize there is an outreach beyond. And so trying to just think through some of the intentional wording there, how that may help to serve more people that are coming into, so to speak, contact with the Bible, with the Lord, and with his principles of his word. It was money in a financial crisis that was a key part of Dave Ramsey's, you probably would say, conversion experience, or at least surrender experience in his own walk. It really did change a lot of things, and a lot of people, when they're going through financial hardship, become much more open to the things of the Lord and to his truth. And then when they see his financial principles and his principles of life working, like the book of Proverbs, I've heard people testify of the practicality and the truth of the wisdom of Proverbs being what led them to believe the rest of the Bible. So I recognize that's an element. But where I'm going with this is faithfulness applies in how you extend your tent. I used the illustration of what if your business was growing, or what if your relational network's expanding. You have more friends, or your kids are suddenly now, they're getting a little older, they have more friends and stuff now, and you're in relationship now with other parents and more people in your realm of influence. How do we manage that faithfully? Well, one, our capacity is going to grow if we choose to engage this opportunity and this shift in life. Okay, the capacity can grow, and that's really kind of my second point. But the first one is kind of a choice. Okay, but I really want to highlight the capacity again in a second. First, you kind of got to make a choice. Are you going to choose to keep doing everything the same, and it kind of has another C word that can be a part of it, or are you going to choose to be complacent? Are you going to choose to change, or to be complacent. When things expand, when your business grows, you have to do things a different way. Even when a church grows, some things have to be handled a different way. It doesn't mean you change the preaching or you change the message or those types of things. But if you have 20 people versus having 400 people or 1,000 people in a church, for example, or in a business, if you have one employee and then you have 3 employees, you got to change the way you're doing some things. With one employee, it's much easier to, like do payroll and stuff. When you got 3, okay, well now you got more people relying on you. It takes more time. You might start being at the point where you're thinking about a payroll service. You might start be thinking about your hiring process a little more. The more that something grows, the more, if you will, complexity, there's another C word, can be brought into it. Okay, but here's what happens if we make a choice to grow. We make a choice to change rather than staying complacent. Like if we do everything the way we're doing it right now and things are expanding and growing, if we don't make any changes, we're going to potentially burn out, in the long run, or that complacency is going to lead to just really growing ineffective, to be honest, because we're trying to sustain something, whether we like the tradition or we're comfortable with it. We're trying to sustain something in the past, and this is just part of human nature. Comfort is a very hard thing to kill. Very hard thing to kill. And we don't need to get super complex. What I actually would argue is point number 2. So one is we got a choice to make. If we choose to try to keep everything the same, then we're not really going to grow. So think about this in your finances. If your financial bottom line grows, whether you've paid off some debt, so now you have more margin, or your income went up, you got a pretty substantial raise, even more than just a marginal raise, you're blown out of the water. Well, if you raise your standard of living rather than your standard of giving and your saving and your level of stewardship, if you just simply raise your standard of living, you're going to live the same way as you are now, just with more money. If you have a spending problem and that got you into the credit card debt, if you're just going to continue that, then you're not really growing. It's just more money just makes a problem even worse. And that applies to other areas of life too, the relationships you're managing or the breadth of a business or those types of other illustrations I've been using. So it begins with a choice. Are you going to be responsible or are you going to coast? I'm using a lot of C's for some reason today. But that leads into number 2. If you make the choice to grow, you will see your capacity and your capability grow. If you intentionally are learning from new things, like let's say, as I mentioned before, your kids now are getting a little older, they have more friendships, you have more parents and stuff you're in now some type of a sphere of relationship with, or you've made more friends through something, your approach to relationships is going to change. Either you delegate more time to relationships or you become more intentional in how you do them. When you don't have a lot of friends, for example, you may spend a long, protracted period of time with just a few people, and you do a lot more life on life. You spend hours upon hours together. And to some extent, it's a really great blessing if you have some friends like that in your life. But what tends to happen as our relational circle grows is we tend to be spending more structured time and more intentional time relationally. So for example, in your business, if your relationships with clients, you have more clients has now grown, you have to be much more structured in, how you're scheduling those times, how prompt you are getting on and off the phone or having meetings. You have to be more structured when there's more people. But that also causes your capability and your capacity to grow. It's a hard thing to learn, to now having to do things a different way. For example, I went through this in my business last year. When I began to do moving into the financial coaching and such myself, I had really good coaching in the back corner and really good encourager from the Ramsey team that helped me get started. They did the training and I went through their master coaching program, and then their program changed because they even had a mechanism where they had referrals and stuff. Some changes happened in the company. They have incredible opportunities now with their team. It's a very large company now. It's grown a lot over the 30 plus years since Dave started it. They have like over 1,000 employees, I believe now. So they're able to do a lot more stuff in-house, and they're able to hire people into the team rather than having this huge network of independent coaches that they've trained. It's more that now, okay, you're independent, and you're even more independent because they have the team and the capacity and capability to really handle a lot of those things themselves now. They used to be able to grow in a different way. So my point is, I grew a lot in my capability and capacity learning their method of how to connect with clients and do connections and all that stuff. It was really good because what Ramsey was excellent at is they didn't make things too complex. They kept it simple, and they kept it simple and actionable enough for me to grow. And how they coached us and their framework of teaching, really more of like a discipleship mindset, and they focused on growth. And so it grew my capability and my capacity. And then now, as I mentioned early on in the updates, some stuff is exploding in terms of certain opportunities. But then that moves me into some other ideas of faithfulness. Okay? Now I have to be thinking about, now I'm having all these opportunities come my way to speak or do whatever, but if these things are opportunities to, for example, encourage pastors or train them in the majority world, they can't necessarily pay. They're very poor areas where a majority of the world's population is. So I want to help and I have those opportunities. I'm not like just turning them all down because of the financial lack there. I'm looking for how can I be effective. So one, I am able to take some of the stuff that I'm planning to turn into books and turn into training and stuff, and I'm able to get live feedback and actually teach it to people for free in a sense. So I'm able to benefit from it that way. It's a dual benefit. I'm also able to work on developing something that meets a need. It's a passion of mine to help ministers and to help ministers that are bivocational here in the U.S., but there's a large number across the world, same situation, and pastors that are never going to be able to go to seminary. So what about an alternative seminary? What about we cut through some of the fluff or some of the distracting things and we get to the core basic truths? And again, the same lens, how do I help others, even across the world, to be faithful in ministry? Faithful in teaching the Bible, faithful expository apologetics, faithful in leadership, faithful in prayer. How do I teach these things? And so, from the financial perspective, that also begins to I reached out for some coaching help to some, I have some coaches and some mentors and stuff I can reach out to. And one of them began to tell me, this is a really good time to consider, do you have some type of paid subscription tier for people? Well, I have that already launched. So people can support the content and subscribe in that way. Are there donors potentially, individual donors that could, or partners, individual ministry or church or whatever, even business partners that believe in the mission of what I'm doing, that can help sustain the financial side on my end to go do this work that is very valuable and has, again, there's even eternal impact involved and helping a lot of people. In one sense, it's very enviable, is what this coach told me, to have all the opportunities I have and to have had them, in a sense, so quickly. But my concern, and as I reached out to prayer partners last week, was I don't want to be successful. I want to be faithful. Now, faithful doesn't mean that you don't think through practically, how do I take care of my family? How do I continue to grow in my capability and my capacity to serve now more people more effectively? What pivots do I need to make in my own habits? And so, I've talked a lot about micro habits, done a lot of coaching on that. I'm just sharing the example that as life happens, you pivot. You can either choose to stay stuck, and that creates a lot of problems. A lot of people struggle. It's human nature, do not want to change. Change is very hard. But unless we're constantly growing, changing in an appropriate way, not saying that every season is as intense as others, but if we don't have a growth mindset, a continual learner mindset, we get stuck. And in the work world today, in almost every career, you can't stay stuck. Almost every career out there is changing so quickly. Technology has changed so fast. If you don't get on board, you get left behind. Even in the educational world, this has been said for years. Sorry, I got an itch on my nose. Even in the educational world, this has been said for years. And I bet the statistics are even more. By the time you graduate college, or at least within a couple years after college, your degree is outdated. What you were taught in terms of technical information is outdated. I would imagine that could even be outdated way faster now. Colleges and educational institutions, in a very real sense, cannot keep up with the level of change. And so if you're not being equipped with the basics and learning how to be a continual learner, you're going to have to commit in most jobs to continual CEUs. You're continuing to get new certifications or continuing certifications or maintaining licenses. This is a part of a lot of jobs, for example, in the US. So you have to make that decision and constantly be growing, or you stay stuck. It all goes back, though, it circles back around to choice. You have the choice. You can choose responsibility, or you can choose complacency. If you choose complacency, it's going to be a lot more painful. It's going to hurt. Either way is hard. It's just true. Either option is hard. Either choice is hard. But a common coaching phrase here, choose your hard. Okay? Choose your hard. Life is tough. Working through conflict or working through disagreements or working through change is hard. But so is just running away from it, not changing, not growing, and not engaging. That's also hard. Choose your heart. And here's a real simple way to help cut through a lot of the noise. Which hard, if you choose it, will be the most faithful response? Honestly, it's usually very simple. When we look at the things the Bible tells us should be the priorities in our life, like our walk with the Lord, our marriage, our families, our relational circle and how we're navigating those things, and how we're bearing one another's burdens as fellow believers, it's actually a lot simpler than we think many times. So, how can you be faithful? How can you make a choice to be faithful, rather than making a choice for comfort that really can be a choice for unfaithfulness? You don't need to be creative. You need to be faithful. You don't have to be original, but you can grow in faithfulness. You don't have to reinvent the wheel and learn all these new things yourself and come up with fresh ideas. Sometimes you may come up with a really good idea, but you know what? You can learn a lot by emulating and imitating other people that have gone before and have learned the lessons. You don't have to figure all this out on your own. And honestly, we weren't created to. It's one of the reasons why the Lord has given us the gift of other people. Whether we know them personally or whether we learn from their videos or their books or their training or their course, or just conversations with someone, whether they're older or not, that has some wisdom and some experience that we can gain from. God bless you. Hope that was helpful. Feel free to comment anything to continue the conversation. And as always, if I can help, reach out, whether that's financial coaching, whether that's maybe coaching through some decisions in life that kind of have you stuck. Those all fall into the coaching category, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. Maybe you're thinking, well, I don't really want to make a commitment to pay for something. Okay, let's just start with you asking a question. Let's see if I can help with that basic question, and then we can see if anything goes further. Is there more help needed? And if so, we can cross that bridge when we come to it and see what some continued support may look like. But if not, I'd love to have a conversation with you. When I make these videos and stuff, I like to know that it's actually made a difference and an impact in somebody's life. And so your likes, even your angry response if you don't like what I said, your comments, or you reaching out with a question or a message, all of that matters. And all of that is a way of kind of like tipping me, letting me know that this resonated or didn't resonate with you. And again, if I can serve, that of course is my ultimate goal. So if I can help you, please reach out. God bless.